Hi boys and girls. We have been talking about the work of Picasso and Kimmy Cantrell and creating our designs in our sketchbooks. You guys have started to create your designs focusing on those organic shapes and some bright colors. Some of you are starting to add color to yours. Today I want to make sure that you create your design and you make sure that the design you create in your sketchbook is the size that you want your mask to be. You're gonna notice this one, they've really used that space, nice and large, because that's the size that your mask will be. I went ahead and started a design on paper. I know some of you are adding color to yours, and I want to make sure that each of you has a black and white pencil design that you can then trace over with a nice dark marker. And I want you to notice I am tracing over all the lines that I actually want to cut out of the clay. I'm actually not tracing over any lines that I've added just as design. So some of those lines that I have in there, which are pencil, I'm just going to be drawing those into the clay. I'm not actually cutting out the clay with those lines. So I'm just going to leave those pencil and I'm tracing over just the lines I'm cutting out. Now, each of you is going to be given a slab the next time you come in. And the slab of clay is just a thin rolled out piece of clay that I've already rolled out for you. And we are going to be transferring this design onto that slab. And it's fairly simple. You just need to make sure that you actually get it the size that you, or that you position it on the clay. And it's kind of hard to position it when you can't really see where it's going. So I'm gonna go ahead and bubble cut around my design. And then I'm just going to flip this over and make sure that it kind of fits. I can see the back of it. I can see where it, I can see my marker lines kind of like faintly. So I'm gonna just try to position it so I get all of it onto the clay. And then I'm just gonna lay it down and I'm gonna rub with my hands. You'll have a rolling pin. If you wanna go ahead and roll with the rolling pin gently, you can. And I'm gonna peel it off and you're gonna notice that my design will transfer right onto the clay. But it is the reverse image. It is backwards. So that's something that you'll have to think about, whether you want yours to be backwards or whether you actually want to cut it out and then flip it over. So when you cut this out, you're going to be using some tools. You can use just a clay pencil, or you can use one of these clay knives. It's a fairly dull knife, so it's safe. If you're using it the correct way, you should have no problem. And we just kind of drag the knife over your design. And you're gonna notice that you can actually turn your slab, because your slab will be on a piece of fabric. We use that fabric underneath so that your slab does not stick to the table. So as I'm cutting it out, just gonna drag that knife around till it meets that line again. I can just peel that off and set that aside. I'm actually going to use a clay pencil to cut out the circles because I think doing that with the knife might be kind of difficult. I'll actually have some toothpicks for you as well, because that's a really easy way to cut out the small details. Now I'm not going to, at this point, cut out my features, but I do want you to notice that I went ahead and added my design that was on the side over here. Rather than attaching it, I went ahead and added it right to the slab. Now your lines are going to burn away, so you don't need to worry about those lines. All I'm doing is taking my finger with just a tiny little dip of water and just kind of softening those edges so that you don't end up with sharp edges when it comes, or when it dries and then goes into the kiln. You want to have nice smooth edges. Now, I'm actually gonna take my slab and set it aside. And again, I think I told you, you can either flip it over if you're really unhappy with the fact that it's a reverse image, or if it doesn't bother you, I mean, they are abstract, you can just work with the design backwards. I'm taking the extra clay and I'm kind of forming a ball and then pressing it into a patty. And I'm gonna be using this to cut all my extra pieces, all the eyes, nose out of this. You might say, how am I gonna do all that? Well, you can do it one at a time. So I've made it into a patty, kind of like a hamburger patty. And so that it's nice and smooth, I'm just gonna kind of roll. And I'm not rolling too much. I don't want it to be very, very thin. Just rolling it a little bit to give it a flat surface. And again, it's about the thickness of a pancake. And I can actually take maybe some pieces and add those on just one at a time. So if I want to, let's say, start with those eyes, I'm just going to take this again and press where I think the eyes would be. Peel it up. I'm not going to worry about the nose, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this eye out with my tool. Try to stay on your lines. If not, it's not a big deal. I'll start with just the one eye. And what's nice about having the marker images there, you know where to scratch and attach. We're gonna do the scratch attach method that we used last year when we were making our sunflowers. So I'm gonna take the back of the piece of clay that I'm adding and I'm gonna scratch it up. You can also use tools like a fork, makes the lines really quickly, or even that little scratching tool that we talked about that has the little rigid edges there. And I'm also going to scratch up, when I'm doing small items like this, I like to go ahead and use my pencil, because I have more control with a pencil than a fork. And you're gonna go ahead and add water to the slab, and then you're gonna go ahead and add water to the back of the clay piece. And by doing that, all I need to do is press my image down, press my clay piece down. Again, don't worry about your lines with the marker because those will just burn off.